15. But I talk about Mississippi because I think it's important when you're running for governor of Georgia, in Atlanta, people need that you understand it. And I've never been to Mississippi, even cities are a bit rural. So, but they're all united through a set of values that I was raised to believe in the whole truth. My parents raised us with 3 responsibilities. Go to church, go to school, and take care of each other. They chose to go to church because they wanted us to anchor our souls in something larger than ourselves. We grew up working poor, and they think that the clarity of our minds and the capacity of our spirits had anything to do with our economics. So they took us to church because they wanted us to have a moral framework, to think about how we interacted with our community. But one of the things they taught us that I don't recognize down at the Capitol is that they never taught me to disparage against others or discriminate against others. The faith I was raised to believe defended others, protected communities. And sometimes when I hear my colleagues or former colleagues talking about the Bible, I think they're missing some pages. Because the Bible I believe in does not treat others the way the Capitol treats folks, using the Bible as a justification. The second responsibility my parents taught us was go to school. And this was critical to them. My mom is one of 7 children. She dropped out of school in 3rd grade. It took a neighbor and a teacher to get her to go back. My mom became the first and only one of her 7 siblings to finish high school. She graduated, instead of being a 3rd grade dropout, my mother graduated as valedictorian of her high school. She went to college, being the only one of her 7 siblings. Yeah, you clap for my mom. My mom not only went to college, she also got a master's degree in library science at the University of Wisconsin, which is where I was born. My father had a different story. My dad is dyslexic. So imagine growing up a young black man who's dyslexic in Mississippi in the 1950s. They just told him he was stupid. But he had teachers who saw his potential. He had sisters and brothers who understood that he had a mind that was unparalleled. In fact, my father memorized his way through school. He would go to class every day so he could hear his lesson, and he had teachers who would work with him so that he didn't have to fill out his test. He could tell them what he knew. And he did so well, he became the first man in his family to go to college. But both of my parents, despite doing everything they were supposed to, came back to Mississippi and found themselves not moving as far forward as they thought they would. They went from being abject poor. My dad likes to say he was from the wrong side of the tracks, and my mom's from the wrong side of the tracks. They moved up to being just regular poor. But the problem was my mom, even though she was a college librarian, she made less money sometimes than the janitor who cleaned that college. Because there was no law that said a black woman had to be paid her worth. And my father, even though he had a college degree in history from one of Mississippi's top colleges, couldn't get a job in an office because he didn't read. And so he became a shipyard worker. It was noble work, and I don't disparage it, but my dad didn't have a choice. Because learning differences weren't respected, and there were no other avenues for him. And so for my parents, education has always been a critical issue, because even though it didn't get them as far as they thought it would, it got them further than anyone they knew. And so they made certain that their 6 children went to class every single day. If you want to miss a day of school, you need to have a surgical scar and be missing really But in a single generation, my parents went from being first generation to producing 2 PhDs, 2 JDs, a social worker, and my brother Walter, who I'll talk about later. We had 3 jobs: go to church, go to school. The 3rd job was take care of each other. And when they said that, they meant not to take care of the 6 of us, but take care of the community around us. Which made no sense to us because we were working poor. We would live in a house where water got cut off sometimes. There was no electricity. I was like in 7th grade before I realized commodity cheese wasn't a fancy name for cheese. But what they wanted us to understand was that no matter how little we had, there was someone with less, and our job was to serve that person. So they would take us to soup kitchens and homeless shelters. We would go and volunteer at public housing facilities and juvenile justice facilities. Because they said, you don't wallow in your circumstances and you don't worry about having nothing. Having nothing is not an excuse for doing nothing. And so instead they made certain we were always engaged in public service. Because they wanted us to understand that we have the capacity to change not only our lives, but the lives of those around us. My parents took it so seriously that at the age of 40, they became permanently poor, became United Methodist ministers. And that's what brought us to Georgia. They went to Emory to do their Master's of Divinity. But the moment that has me here today, the moment that I remember most clearly, was when I was in Mississippi. My dad worked at Ingalls Shipbuilding, which is about 40 miles from where we grew up. And so he would get a carpool to work in the morning because my parents only had one car. And my mom had to use it to get to work and get the 6 of us around. So my dad would ride to work with Mr. Luther at 6 a.m. He'd come home at 6 p.m. like clockwork, unless he had to work multiple shifts. And when that happened, it's a good story, but I didn't expect the lights to stay on. But when that happened, my dad would have to take his chances, and he'd have to hitchhike 40 miles down Highway 90 to get home. And this could be at 2 in the morning, 5 in the morning. And I remember one winter night, it was cold and it was raining and there had been storms and accidents, and my dad called my mom and said, "Carolyn, I'm on my way home." And my mom just had a bad feeling. So she woke us up and she put us in the car. My older sister took one window, I took the other one, and my younger siblings went to sleep in the back. And we went driving down Highway 90 looking for my dad. My older sister sees him up ahead in the distance. My mom pulls off on the side of the highway. Dad gets in the car, but he's wet and he's shivering because he's in his shirt sleeves. My mother looks at him and she's like, "Robert, where is your coat? Did you leave it at Ingalls?" My dad said, "No. There was a homeless man on the beach. I gave it to him." Now, Andrea and I look at each other waiting for the explosion because my dad only had one coat. And you lose a sock in our house and you have to have a ransom note. But all my mom said was, "Oh, okay." So she pulls back onto the highway and we go back home. So I look at Andrea and she looks at me. I'm like, "You're older, you ask." And she does. She says, "Daddy, why would you do that? Why would you give that man your coat? You don't have another one." And my dad said, "When I came on that man on the beach, he was alone. And I knew when I left him there, he would still be alone. I gave him my coat because I knew I could, because you were coming for me. I'm running for governor of Georgia because I'm coming for Georgia." I'm coming for those communities that have done everything they're supposed to and are still left out and left behind. I'm coming for those families who've been told they love the wrong people, they speak the wrong language, they live in the wrong zip code. I'm coming for families that are doing okay but don't think their children will ever do any better. And I'm coming for those who are doing well but know they have to reach back and lift as they climb. I'm coming for a new Georgia that we can create if we're willing to work for it. Because I don't believe there are 2 Georgias. I think there are 3. There's the Georgia that was, there's the Georgia that is, and if we work together in 2018, there's the Georgia that will be. That is a Georgia that looks different, that feels different. It's a Georgia that believes in all of its people. And I want to be the governor of that Georgia. I want to educate bold and ambitious children from cradle to career. My parents had to make certain we lived on the poor street on the middle class side of town to get zoned into the good schools. You should not have to have a degree in cartography to get an education in the state of Georgia. And I'm going to be the governor who for the first time in 20 years actually invests in education. Because since 2003 we've knocked out, since 2003 we've stripped $9 billion from our educational system. $9 billion. This year it's $167 million. $167 million can transform lives. And we have to have a governor who's willing to say enough, but then more importantly is willing to say we owe people back pay, and we owe the state back pay for education in the state of Georgia. And I'm going to be that governor. But we also have to have a governor who, in addition to educating bold and ambitious children, believes that we can build a thriving and diverse economy in every community. I come to this race having gone to Spelman College, the University of Texas at Austin, Yale Law School, and then I had to get a real job, so I came back to Atlanta. I was a tax attorney. I then became what my mother calls, I started my trajectory of downward economic mobility. So I went from there to being deputy city attorney for the city of Atlanta, and from there I became a state legislator. And I started my first company. And since then I've started enough companies that I know how to create jobs. Because my last company, Now Account, has helped create or retain thousands of jobs in the state of Georgia. And I know that we can't just be the best place in the country to do business. We have to be the best place to start a business, to grow your business, and to live, work, and play. And I'm going to be the governor of all of Georgia, all 159 counties, and everyone who wants to make a good living. Because the state of Georgia has been spending so much time fighting for survival, we've forgotten to fight for success. And I intend to be the governor of success for Georgia. But we can educate bold and ambitious children, we can build a thriving and diverse economy, but if we do not have a good government that is engaged and responsive and led by a leader who understands how to get the job done, we are still going to be lost. And that is why, as the next governor of Georgia, I intend to do on day one something we've been too mean and too cheap to do for the last 7 years. We're going to expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia. Expansion of Medicaid is more than 500,000 people getting health insurance. It's more than the 25,000 veterans who've been suffering because we're too cheap to give them their health insurance. It's about saving the 15 hospitals on the brink of closure. But it's also about mental health insurance. It's about substance abuse treatment. It's about depopulating our jails and making certain people get the help they need. I told you I'm one of 6 kids. My oldest sister, Andrea, is a PhD in cultural anthropology. She's a college professor. My sister, Leslie, is also a Yale Law graduate. She's the first black woman to be a federal judge in the history of Georgia. She's down in Albany. My brother Richard is a social worker who works in Southwest Atlanta with foster kids. My little sister Janine has a PhD in evolutionary biology and molecular systematics and works at the CDC and will probably kill us all. But we have a brother named Walter. Walter dropped out of Morehouse College between his junior and senior years. He lived with me then. Walter is a heroin addict, and he's also incarcerated in the Mississippi State Prison. Because my brother Walter spent 20 years self-medicating. Because when he was 16 or 17 years old, when he started experiencing mood swings and became belligerent, the schools tried to tell him he was just bad. My parents didn't have the language to describe what was happening. They knew to keep him in college prep classes, but we didn't have health insurance. So no one ever looked at Walter's mind. And my brother, it turns out, has been bipolar since he was 17. But he was in his 30s. He was in jail before he was diagnosed. Because he started self-medicating with alcohol and graduated to drugs, and for the rest of his life, he's going to be a heroin addict and bipolar. When Walter got out of jail a few years ago when he was first diagnosed, he got out of jail, and in Mississippi, like in Georgia, Walter faced 3 challenges. Number 1 was when he was released, he lost his health insurance. Because you can't get Medicaid if you're a felon or an ex-offender in the state of Georgia or in Mississippi. And so the same health insurance, the same health care that stabilized him and got him clean enough to be released was taken away from him the moment he left. Number 2, he couldn't find a place to live because when your last address is a state penitentiary, nobody's about to rent you an apartment. And the third problem was he had to check the box saying he'd been arrested and incarcerated, and his application for jobs went from the end pile to the garbage pile. And that happens in Georgia over and over and over again. We have to not just be a state that's starting to do criminal justice reform. We've got to finish the job. And I intend to make Georgia a state of redemption for those who are trying to I also intend to make our state safe, which is why I am proud to be the only candidate running in this race who's consistently got an F rating from the NRA. I grew up in Mississippi. I know how to shoot guns. But I know what to do. And I know that we have terrible laws in the state of Georgia that have made it too easy to get guns, too easy to use them, and we have refused to do the smart things to protect our families and our children. And I will be the governor who makes certain that I am not afraid of the NRA or anybody else who wants to put guns in the hands of children or put guns in the faces of our children. I've got a series of plans, and if you go to my website, StaceyAbrams.com, we've got plans for advanced energy to deal with climate change and deal with renewable energy. We've got plans on criminal justice reform, a broad set of plans about how we decriminalize poverty. We've got plans about how we help early child education from 0 to 3, because we know that a child's cognitive development is completed 90% by the time they're 5 years old. And Georgia's not doing enough. We've got plans on pretty much everything you can think of, and we haven't put it out there, it's on its way. But what you need to know is about why I want this job. I want this job because I'm ready to be the CEO of Georgia. I am a proven leader who has more experience, unmatched qualifications. When I saw that there were 800,000 unregistered people of color in Georgia, the state of South Dakota, I didn't talk about it. I started a nonprofit and registered 200,000 of them between 2014 and 2016. That's my As Representative Dickerson said, when I saw challenges at the Capitol, I didn't whine, I didn't yell and scream, I got to work. I got the Tea Party to help me block anti-environmental bills. Yeah. I was able to get Republicans to put money into transit for the first time. And I know that transit has to be about more than the city of Atlanta. It has to be about all 159 counties in Georgia. And transportation has to be for everyone. And I know how to get the job done. I'm a business leader, a civic leader, and a legislative leader. And I want to be the leader of the state because I want this to be a state where everyone knows that they are part of it. When I was 17 years old, I graduated from DeKalb County High School. I was valedictorian of my high school. And as valedictorian, as you may know, you get invited to meet the governor. Well, my parents didn't have a car at the time. So in the morning, we went out to go to the governor's mansion. We got on MARTA. We took MARTA from Decatur all the way to West Pacer Stairs. We got off the bus, and we walked up the side of the driveway because cars were coming in, the parents bringing their kids. My parents walked with me on either side to make sure we weren't hit, and we got up to the gate. The security guard looked at me, he looked at my parents, and he said, "You don't belong here. This is a private event." My dad said, "No, this is my daughter Stacey. She's one of the valedictorians." And we waited for him to check his list. That's not what he did. He looked at the bus that was pulling away with the smear. And he looked back at me and my parents and he said, "I told you, this is a private event. You don't belong here." Now, unfortunately for that gentleman, he'd never met Robert or Carolyn Abrams. And after a very engaged and vigorous discussion, he checked his clipboard, and he found my name near the top, and he let us in. But I don't remember meeting the governor of Georgia. I don't remember meeting my fellow valedictorians. At 17 years old, my greatest memory of that day is a man standing in front of the most powerful place in Georgia telling me I don't belong. I'm here tonight because I want your help. I want you to sign up. I want you to go to my website. I want you to help me volunteer at Reach Georgians. Because I don't want another Georgian to ever have that experience. Because on May 22nd, when I win the primary, and on November 6th, when I win the general, and in January 2019, when I become the governor of the state of Georgia, I intend to open those gates wide so no one doubts in the state of Georgia that they belong. Thank you so much.